Crossing 2,700 miles of the Sahara requires navigating a landscape of shifting dunes and exposed rock. It is an environment that offers no natural surplus, where every mile is a test of endurance. Mansa Musa's 1324 transit to Cairo functioned as the mobilization of a mobile city. It was a logistical operation of a scale that exceeded standard religious or diplomatic travel. The column consisted of 60,000 individuals moving in formation. This expeditionary force included 12,000 enslaved personnel, who provided the necessary labor to maintain the column's movement. To haul the material required for this mass, the state deployed a dedicated baggage train. This included 80 camels tasked exclusively with transporting the imperial treasury. The payload totaled up to 18 tons of unrefined gold dust. These were raw, heavy nuggets and dust panned from the Bambouk and Bure regions, representing years of accumulated state tribute. Heavily armed imperial infantry marched alongside the payload, providing a security perimeter for the massive wealth and personnel traveling within the column. Moving a population of this size across the desert demanded a state-backed supply chain capable of sustaining an army in a region with zero local resources. The journey was governed by a strict physical constraint: the daily metabolic needs of 60,000 people and their livestock. Every day in the desert was a race against the depletion of water and grain. This network diagram illustrates the route from the Malian capital toward Cairo. Maintaining life across this distance required a sequence of extraction points. The empire relied on its network of vassal states along the southern border to provide continuous supply extraction. These regional hubs were responsible for feeding and watering the column as it passed. Between these hubs, the Malian military managed water reserves with mathematical precision. Consumption rates were calculated against the travel time to the next oasis, where the reserves would be reset. The mathematical reality of this caloric burn characterizes the event as an exercise in rigorous logistical discipline rather than a random act of royal travel. The final, high-risk stretch of the supply line concluded as the column reached the borders of the rival Mamluk Sultanate in Egypt. Reaching Cairo intact demonstrated Mali's ability to project power and maintain complex logistics across the most hostile terrain in Africa. Cairo served as the political center of the Mamluk Sultanate, an empire defined by its massive stone architecture and its control over the eastern Mediterranean. The Mamluk Sultanate functioned as a geopolitical peer to the Mali Empire, sharing a common Islamic identity but maintaining its own distinct imperial interests. Upon arrival, Mansa Musa entered high-level diplomatic meetings with Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad. Standard court protocol in Cairo required all visitors, including kings, to prostrate themselves and kiss the ground as a sign of submission to the Sultan. Mansa Musa publicly refused to perform this act of submission. This refusal was a deliberate breach of traditional protocol. It served to assert that the Mansa of Mali stood as a sovereign equal to the Mamluk Sultan. Musa ultimately claimed he would bow only to God. This compromise allowed him to maintain diplomatic relations while preserving his own status as a peer ruler. This diplomatic standoff set the stage for a period of intense market activity that would test the economic stability of the Egyptian capital.
Following the diplomatic meetings, Musa's entourage flooded the markets of Cairo, introducing a massive amount of gold into the local economy. This heat map shows capital hitting the city's key sectors. The Malian caravan purchased vast quantities of luxury goods and real estate. By repeatedly overpaying, this rapid injection of capital caused Cairo's purchase prices to spike. This data from the 1375 Catalan Atlas reflects how the event shaped European perceptions. It shows a Mediterranean world that had become acutely aware of the economic scale of the Malian state. The atlas uses specific iconography to depict the Mansa, a king seated on a throne holding a massive gold coin. This image established a lasting perception of Malian wealth in the global consciousness. The Cairo spending functioned as an aggressive demonstration of fiscal liquidity, proving that the Mali Empire held the primary supply of the world's reserve currency. Demonstrating this level of liquidity signaled to the Mamluk elite that Mali controlled the flow of gold into the Mediterranean markets. This display of hard economic power forced the Mamluk state to reckon with the sheer scale of the treasury Musa carried across the desert. A sudden, massive influx of a reserve currency into a restricted market creates a supply shock. When gold becomes too common, its relative value against other commodities must drop. As thousands of pounds of Malian gold entered the Cairo markets, the local economy experienced a severe devaluation of its primary currency. The historian Al-Umari, writing shortly after the event, tracked the specific exchange rate of the gold mithqal in the Cairo markets. Before Musa's arrival, the gold mithqal was worth 25 silver dirhams. After the influx, the value plummeted below 22. As gold lost value, prices of basic survival goods rose sharply to compensate, significantly increasing the cost of living. This currency devaluation and rising prices resulted in severe hyperinflation, triggered by an external source. The impact was not temporary. The Mamluk economy required over a decade to recover from the massive supply of gold Musa left behind. This event demonstrated how flooding a peer market with a reserve currency results in a devastating, bloodless mechanism for destabilizing a regional economy. Following the conclusion of his pilgrimage, Musa began the 2,700-mile return journey to the Malian heartland. The scale of the Cairo spending and the ongoing logistical costs of the column eventually exhausted the caravan's immediate cash reserves. To fund the return crossing, Musa was forced to borrow from Egyptian merchants. These high-interest loans created a significant short-term debt for the Malian treasury. This debt represents a calculated trade-off. Musa internalized a short-term financial liability to sustain the strategic impact of his transit through Egypt. The surviving column successfully crossed back into Malian territory, returning to the Niger River Valley. The expedition expanded scholarly and architectural capacity. Musa brought back Maliki jurists and Andalusian architects, who began work on the empire's key urban centers. The Jinga Rubber Mosque displays this legacy. Its mud brick towers and wooden supports reflect a new fusion of Andalusian expertise and Malian building techniques. Mansa Musa demonstrated that an economic supply shock could destabilize a peer state, positioning Mali at the top of the